The night I ruined my life started with a sleepy text. My eyes were barely open, my phone screen glowing dimly in the dark. I was half asleep, thinking of my best friend, the one who always checked if I got home safe. My thumbs danced lazily over the screen as I mumbled the words under my breath. "Good night, I love you, send," that's it. Just that. I didn't double-check the name. I didn't notice the contact above hers, the one I had accidentally saved a few days ago after helping a drunk stranger outside a bar. A man who'd dropped his phone, and I texted my number into his so he could call it later. I thought he'd never use it. He never did, until tonight. I woke up to a buzz. Then another. Then a third. 3 messages from an unknown number. My heart stuttered as I rubbed my eyes and looked closer. "Who are you? Who says I love you to someone they don't know? You should be more careful with your words, sweetheart." My breath hitched. Sweetheart. Something about the word made my stomach twist. I didn't reply. I tossed my phone aside, blaming my half-asleep self for the embarrassment. But the next morning when I checked again, there were more messages. Dozens. Morning, sleeping beauty. You ignored me. That's not polite. You don't even know who you texted, do you? Tell me your name. I'll make sure you never forget mine. The last one made my fingers freeze. Who the hell was this man? I scrolled up to his contact, the one I'd saved that night. It wasn't even a full name, just a single letter, L. That's what I typed before handing him back his phone. He'd been tall, his knuckles bruised, his eyes like dark storms that hid too much behind them. The kind of man who didn't say thank you, just stared long enough to make you look away. And now he was texting me like he owned the air I breathed. I typed back one word. Sorry. His reply came within seconds. For what, sweetheart? For texting me or for trying to forget? My hands trembled. I didn't know what he meant. Forget what? I left the phone on the counter and went about my day, trying to convince myself it was just some arrogant stranger who'd gotten a kick out of teasing me. But that night, I came home to a box sitting at my apartment door. A small black velvet box, no name, no note. Inside, there was a silver bracelet with a tiny charm, a letter L. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't have to check my phone to know who it was from. Still, I did. Another message blinked on the screen. You dropped this, didn't you? My pulse pounded so hard it hurt. I never owned this, I typed. The typing bubbles appeared. Then, you do now. Don't take it off. That night, I locked all my doors. But I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his voice in my head, the one I never truly heard but somehow felt. It was dangerous, smooth, the kind of voice that wrapped itself around your fear and called it curiosity. And I was curious. I hated that about myself. I hated that a single text, an accident, had pulled me into something I didn't understand. The next morning, I received another message. You shouldn't ignore me, love. It makes me worry. My heart dropped as I realized something else. He wasn't just texting me anymore. He knew where I lived. By the third day, I had stopped pretending it was harmless. I deleted the messages, blocked his number, even changed my SIM card. But the messages came anyway. Different numbers, same words, same tone. You can't block me, sweetheart. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run to the police. But what would I tell them? That a man I texted by mistake was now haunting my phone and leaving gifts at my door? They'd tell me to stay calm, file a report, wait. But waiting meant living with fear, and I was already choking on it. Then came the note. It was taped to my apartment door, written in handwriting so sharp it looked carved. Meet me. 1 coffee, no police. I promise you'll understand. Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe the desperation to end it. So I went. I told myself I'd meet him, tell him to stop, and walk away. The cafe was crowded enough to feel safe. I sat by the window, fidgeting with the silver bracelet. Every few seconds I looked up, searching for a face I didn't know but already feared. And then he appeared. Black coat, gloved hands, eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. He was the kind of man who drew silence from the air around him. People moved aside without him asking. He didn't walk. He owned the space. When his gaze found me, my breath caught. He didn't smile, didn't blink. He just stopped in front of me, tilted his head slightly, and said in a low voice, "So you're the girl who texted me goodnight." I tried to speak, but the words tangled. My mind screamed at me to leave, but my body refused to move. He sat down across from me, and for a moment, the world felt too quiet. Then he reached out, his fingers brushing the bracelet on my wrist. "You kept it," he said softly. "Good girl." I jerked my hand back. I didn't know what scared me more, his calmness or the warmth in his tone. "Who are you?" I finally whispered. He looked amused, as if I'd just asked what air was. Then he leaned closer, voice brushing my ear. "The one you shouldn't have texted." The moment he said those words, everything inside me froze. The one you shouldn't have texted. It echoed in my chest like a warning bell that came too late. His eyes were steady, dark, intelligent, cold enough to make me forget how to breathe. And yet, beneath that danger, there was something magnetic. A pull I couldn't explain. Something that made me feel like if I looked away, I'd miss a truth buried deep behind those eyes. I tried to gather the courage to stand. But his voice anchored me down. Sit. It wasn't a request. My body obeyed before my mind caught up. He rested his gloved hands on the table, leaning slightly forward. The air around him felt charged, like static before a storm. You have no idea who I am, do you? I swallowed hard, shaking my head. Good, he said. Keep it that way. Then why are you doing this? I blurted out. The words slipped before I could weigh them. Why send messages? Why follow me? His lips curved faintly. Not a smile, but something crueler, quieter. You texted me first. You said you loved me. I'm just returning the favor. My throat tightened. That simple sentence carried too much weight, too much mockery, and something darker, almost possessive. That was an accident, I whispered. I didn't mean it. He nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. Accidents change lives. For a second, I didn't understand what he meant. Then he reached into his coat and slid something across the table. A folded photograph. My heart pounded as I opened it. It was me, standing outside my apartment building. From yesterday, the photo had been taken from across the street. How did you... His hand brushed mine, stopping me mid-sentence. You walk home too late, he said softly. You trust the dark too easily. My stomach turned to ice. I wanted to run, to scream, to call the police, but he didn't look like someone you could report. He looked like someone who owned the system. What do you want from me? His gaze softened just a little, and that scared me more than the threat. Maybe I just want a conversation. Maybe I want to know why a stranger's "I love you" felt like something I'd been waiting to hear. I stared at him, stunned by the calmness of it all. It wasn't logic. It was obsession dressed in poetry. I don't even know your name, I whispered. He leaned back, tapping a finger on the table. Call me Luca. It was the first time he'd said it, and the name hit the air like the click of a gun being loaded. Luca. Short, clean, lethal. He took a sip of his coffee. Black. No sugar. And then stood. You don't need to be afraid of me, he said. But his tone carried the weight of every reason why I should be. He slipped something onto the table, another small box, and turned to leave. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside lay a key, a single silver key with a number engraved on it. 47. I didn't understand. Not until my phone buzzed again. If you ever feel unsafe, use it. It's a safe place. I'll be waiting. That night, I couldn't eat. Couldn't think. His voice replayed in my head, smooth, unhurried, like silk wrapping around a knife. Who was this man who spoke of love like a threat? Sleep didn't come easy. When I finally drifted off, it wasn't peace that followed. It was the dream of his eyes watching me through smoke and shadow, his voice whispering. Accidents change lives. And when I woke up, heart hammering, breath shallow, the first thing I saw on my nightstand was the silver bracelet. Only now it had a new addition. Another charm, shaped like a key. He had been here, in my room. A scream tore through the dawn. The scream that ripped out of me wasn't just fear. It was disbelief, humiliation, and raw panic stitched together. My hands trembled as I stared at the bracelet, the new charm catching the faint light of morning. It was proof. Proof that he'd been here, inside my apartment, while I slept. I grabbed my phone and dialed emergency services, but my thumb hovered midair. What would I even say? That a man I texted by mistake broke into my home just to leave me jewelry. They'd laugh, maybe send a patrol car to glance around, but nothing more. Men like him, Luca, weren't stopped by police. They owned them. Instead, I texted him. My hands shook so badly that every word was a blur. How did you get in? He replied instantly. You left the window unlocked. My heart stuttered. My window was on the 5th floor. You're insane. This time, he took a few seconds. Long enough for my heartbeat to echo in my ears. No, sweetheart. Just interested. I threw my phone across the couch. My chest hurt with rage, fear, and something else I hated. Curiosity. Why me? Why that text? What kind of man reacts to a mistake like this? By afternoon, I packed a small bag. I needed to leave, at least for a few days. Somewhere he couldn't find me. Somewhere anonymous. But when I walked into the building's lobby, the manager stopped me. A delivery for you, he said, nodding toward a bouquet of black roses on the counter. Black. My skin crawled as I stepped closer. Tied around the stems was a piece of parchment with neat handwriting. Running away already? My throat dried out. I turned, scanning the lobby windows. The street beyond the glass. The city looked normal. Too normal. People walked, talked, lived like everything was fine. But for me, it wasn't. The air outside felt heavy with invisible eyes. That night, I didn't go anywhere. I double-locked my doors, sealed my windows, and slept with the lights on. I thought maybe if I stayed awake, he wouldn't come. But sleep crept in anyway, and with it, a dream. In it, I was walking through fog. Someone followed. Every time I turned, there was no one, but I felt him. A presence right behind me, close enough that his breath brushed my neck. When I finally spun around, he was there, tall, sharp in a black coat. His face was half in shadow, but his voice was unmistakable. "Why are you so afraid of me?" I woke up gasping. The bracelet clinked softly when I clutched my wrist. I wanted to tear it off, but something inside me whispered not to. It felt cursed, like if I removed it, something worse would happen. Morning came cruelly bright. I barely managed to get ready for work. As I left my building, the doorman handed me a letter, his expression uneasy. "This was dropped off for you. No return name." The envelope smelled faintly of smoke. Inside was a single card with an address. No note, no signature. But at the bottom corner, faintly embossed, was that same number again. 47, the safe place. I should have thrown it away. I should have ignored every instinct screaming inside me. But I didn't, because I needed answers. I needed to know who Luca really was, and what this obsession meant. By evening, I found myself standing in front of an old hotel on the edge of the city. The kind of place that looked abandoned but wasn't. Room 47 was on the top floor. The hallway smelled of old wood and rain, the light bulbs flickering as I walked. My heartbeat drowned out everything else. When I stopped at the door, I hesitated. I told myself I'd only look, just to prove it was nothing. But the door opened before I could knock. He stood there, leaning against the frame, dressed in black again, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to reveal veins and scars that told stories. His expression softened the moment he saw me. "You came," he said quietly, as if he'd been waiting years for this. My voice broke. "How do you know where I live? Why won't you stop?" He stepped closer. I took a step back. "Because, sweetheart, you said something to me no one ever has." I shook my head, choking out a laugh. "I said goodnight. I said I love you by mistake." He smiled faintly, but there was sadness in it too. There are no mistakes in timing. "You said it when I needed to hear it most." My breath faltered. His tone wasn't mocking this time. It was haunted. Like he was speaking from somewhere deeper than obsession. "Luca," I whispered, unsure why saying his name felt dangerous. He looked at me for a long, unbearable moment before saying, "You don't have to love me back. Just don't walk away yet." And for a reason I couldn't explain, I didn't. The door clicked softly behind me, and I realized too late that stepping inside was more than just a mistake. It was surrender. The room wasn't what I expected. It wasn't the lair of a criminal or some cold, sterile hideout. It looked lived in, dimly lit. Books stacked in uneven towers on the table. Whiskey bottles half empty beside a leather couch. A faint trace of sandalwood in the air, warm and strangely calming. I wanted to hate that it felt safe. Luca moved to the corner, his steps slow, deliberate. He poured a drink but didn't offer me one. His eyes, dark and reflective, flicked toward me. "Sit." His voice wasn't harsh, just commanding enough that my knees almost obeyed before my pride caught up. "I'll stand." That almost made him smile. Almost. He tilted his glass, watching the amber swirl like he was studying something far more dangerous. "You're brave. I didn't think you'd come." "I didn't," I said. "I just wanted this to stop." His gaze lingered. "This." He said the word quietly, tasting it like it meant more than I understood. "You mean the messages? The gifts? Or the part where I can't stop thinking about you?" A shiver crawled down my spine. "You don't even know me," I whispered. He set his glass down, crossing the distance between us until we were a breath apart. His presence filled the room, warm, consuming, suffocating. "You're wrong," he murmured. "I've known people all my life. Business partners, enemies, liars. And not one of them has ever made me feel seen until that text. It was just words," I said, voice trembling. "A mistake," he smiled faintly. "And yet, here you are." I turned away, hugging my arms close. The floor creaked beneath my feet as I stepped back. I wanted to scream at him, call him insane, demand he stop, but something in his tone kept me still. It wasn't just obsession. It was grief, too. He moved toward the window, his reflection cutting against the pale city lights. "Do you know what it's like to lose everything and feel nothing?" he asked quietly. "To have your hands stained with choices you can't undo, and then one day, one message, pulls you back into being human again." My chest ached. His words were too raw to be rehearsed. I didn't answer. I couldn't. He turned then, eyes glinting in the dim light. "You texted me, 'Goodnight. I love you' on the anniversary of my brother's death." My heart stopped. He walked closer again, his voice steady, but trembling at the edges. I was sitting in a car outside a warehouse, ready to pull the trigger on a man who betrayed me. I'd already decided there was no good left in the world. And then, your message came through. He reached for the bracelet on my wrist, his fingers brushing my skin like he was grounding himself. "Do you understand now why I couldn't ignore you?" I did, and I didn't, because understanding didn't erase fear. "Luca, you can't, whatever this is, it's not real," I said. "You don't love me. You love the idea of me." He smiled faintly, almost tenderly. "Maybe, but that idea kept me alive. His honesty shook me more than any threat could have. "You need help," I said softly. "You can't build your life around a stranger." His gaze hardened. "I don't need saving. I need you to stop pretending you don't feel it too." I flinched. "Feel what?" He stepped close again, his breath brushing my cheek. "That pull. That wrong but right feeling that keeps you from walking out that door." I wanted to deny it, to say I felt nothing but fear. But fear and fascination were twin flames, and both were burning through me fast. "You should leave me alone," I whispered. He leaned closer, voice lower now. "Tell me to stop." "Mean it." The silence between us stretched until it hurt. My lips parted, but no sound came out. He smiled, just slightly, his eyes glinting with something dark and victorious. Exactly, and that was the moment I realized. He wasn't chasing me. I was being pulled toward him, slowly, inexorably, like gravity. I should have left, but instead, I asked the one question I shouldn't have. "What are you, Luca?" His smile faded. For the first time, his mask slipped. "Something you don't want to know, sweetheart." The air between us turned heavy the moment he said that. "Something you don't want to know," but I did. God help me, I did. He looked at me like he wanted to protect me from the truth, and destroy me with it at the same time. My pulse thudded in my ears as I took a step closer, refusing to back down. "Tell me anyway." For a long, drawn-out moment, he just studied me, like he was debating whether I was strong enough to hear it. Then, slowly, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a sleek black card. He placed it on the table, the faint gold lettering catching the dim light. Luka Vasilyev. The name hit me like a gunshot. My stomach dropped. Vasilyev. I'd heard it before. Everyone had. It was the name whispered in late-night news reports and police briefings. A name attached to a world that lived in shadows and blood. A name no one said out loud unless they wanted trouble. "You're lying," I said, shaking my head. He smiled faintly. "I wish I was. You're Mafia." He didn't confirm it. He didn't have to. His silence was louder than any confession. I stumbled back a step, every nerve screaming to run. But his voice stopped me cold. "You texted me. Remember that before you decide to hate me. You're insane if you think that makes any of this okay." He didn't flinch. Instead, he walked toward me slowly, like a predator giving me the illusion of choice. "Maybe, but tell me, do you think I'd let anyone else speak to me the way you do?" I didn't answer. My throat felt raw, my mind spinning. I wanted to call him a liar, a monster, anything, but all I could see was that flicker in his eyes. Something human, something broken. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling like he'd been holding his breath for years. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered. "You should forget I exist." "Then let me go," I whispered. His jaw tightened. "I can't. Why?" "Because you said you loved me first." My heart slammed against my ribs. "Luca, that text, it wasn't real." He looked at me then, his gaze steady but wounded. "Maybe not to you, but to me, it was the first real thing in years." The words sank into the silence like a stone in water. I didn't know what to say. He turned away, picking up his glass again, as if trying to retreat behind his calm facade. "Do you know what happens when people tell me they love me?" he asked quietly. I didn't answer. "They die." The words froze me. He said it like a fact, not a threat. He set the glass down, his voice low. "My brother, my mother, a woman who tried to save me once. Love for me is a curse, not a gift." I swallowed hard. "Then why keep me here?" He looked at me then, and the pain in his eyes nearly made me forget who he was. "Because you didn't run." I took a step back, whispering, "Maybe I should have." His jaw clenched. "Maybe you still will." The tension between us twisted like a rope pulled too tight. He was close again, too close, the scent of his cologne wrapping around me. "You think I want to hurt you?" he said quietly. "Don't you?" "No, but I might have to." My breath hitched. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Gentle, deliberate, dangerous. You deserve a normal life," he murmured. "Not one tangled with men like me." "Then why won't you stop texting me? Why won't you leave me alone?" His hand dropped to his side, fingers curling into a fist. "Because, sweetheart, I can't decide whether to protect you or destroy everyone who looks at you." His words hit me like thunder. Every muscle in my body trembled, not just from fear, but from something else. "You don't even know me," I whispered. He leaned in, his breath brushing my ear. "That's where you're wrong. I've been watching you long before your message." I froze. "What?" He straightened slowly, his expression unreadable. "That night outside the bar. You thought it was coincidence. It wasn't. I was following someone. They tried to use you to get to me." My stomach turned. "So you saved me?" He nodded once. "And you saved me back, without even knowing." The room fell into silence. Outside, the city hummed faintly through the windows. I stared at him. "My chest tight. You terrify me," I said honestly. He smiled. "Soft this time. Good. You'll live longer that way." Then he turned toward the door, his voice low as thunder. "Go home, sweetheart. Before I change my mind about letting you leave, and for the first time, I believed he might mean it. I stumbled out of room 47 like a ghost escaping a mausoleum. My knees were weak, my palms slick with sweat. The hallway stretched long and endless, dim bulbs flickering above like watchful eyes. Every step toward the elevator felt like I was walking out of a dream or a nightmare. When the doors closed behind me, I finally let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. My chest ached. My fingers clutched the silver bracelet, twisting it until the skin beneath turned red. I wanted to tear it off and fling it into the trash, but something inside me stopped. Maybe it was the part of me that still needed answers. Maybe it was the part of me that hated how he made me feel seen. I pressed the lobby button over and over, like it could somehow fast-forward me out of this moment. But even as the elevator hummed downward, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I almost didn't check. But of course I did, you're safe. For now, I gritted my teeth and typed back before I could stop myself. Stay away from me. The typing bubbles appeared. Then you already know I can't, my stomach twisted. I shoved the phone away. The city air outside was damp and cool. Streetlights shimmered off rain-slick pavement. Everything looked the same, but I didn't. I felt like someone had peeled back the world and shown me its underbelly. I walked fast, almost running, until I reached my apartment. I double-locked the door, triple-checked the windows. My heart was still hammering like a drum when I collapsed onto the couch, and that's when I noticed the envelope under my door. I stared at it for a long moment. The handwriting was the same sharp, deliberate script as before. Inside was a note. The people you work for aren't as harmless as you think. Don't go to work tomorrow, I froze. My job? I was a receptionist at a mid-size logistics company. Boring, bland, nothing worth noting. Except last week, 2 men in expensive suits had visited our office. They'd looked at me too long, asked for documents they weren't supposed to have. My manager brushed it off, but something about it felt off even then. How could Luca know? Fear prickled down my spine. Was this another manipulation? Or was I really in danger? I tried to sleep but couldn't. My thoughts raced. His eyes, his voice. The way he said, "You saved me back without even knowing." I hated how my heart beat faster at the memory. When dawn bled through the curtains, my phone buzzed again. Don't go. Please. I stared at the screen, trembling. This wasn't just obsession anymore. This was something else. Something darker. Deeper. Against my better judgment, I called him. He answered on the first ring. I'm not your puppet, I snapped. You don't get to tell me where to go or what to do. His voice was calm, low, and deadly serious. You don't understand what's coming, then tell me. I demanded. Silence. Then, your office is a front for a shipment my men intercepted. They think you know about it. You don't, but that won't matter. My throat went dry. Why would they think that? Because you're the only one they can reach. My knees buckled. Luca, what are you saying? I'm saying, sweetheart, that you've been dragged into a war you don't even see. My breath came out in sharp bursts. And you, where do you stand? Another pause. His voice dropped lower, where I've always been. Between you and everyone who wants you gone. I shut my eyes, gripping the phone tight. Why? Because you made me human again, he said softly. And humans protect what they love. My heart lurched. I wanted to scream at him for using that word again. Love. But the sound died in my throat. If you're lying, I whispered. I'm not, he said. And if you're smart, you'll stay home today. The line went dead. I sat there shaking, torn between disbelief and the instinct that told me he wasn't lying. By noon, I turned on the news. A headline flashed across the screen. Explosion at downtown logistics office. Multiple injured. My stomach dropped. That was my office, my desk, my coworkers. The phone buzzed again. Now do you believe me? I couldn't breathe. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering so loud I couldn't hear anything else. Another message. They'll come for you now. Pack a bag, I typed back with trembling fingers. Where am I supposed to go? Seconds later, room 47. By the time I zipped the last of my clothes into a small overnight bag, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the zipper. My apartment felt like a trap now. Each window, each shadow. A place for eyes to hide. The news played faintly on my phone, showing footage of twisted metal and smoke curling from the office I'd sat in yesterday. People I'd known for months were now screaming and bleeding on sidewalks. And he'd known. Luca had known. I shoved my phone into my pocket, wrapped my coat tight, and bolted. I didn't even call a cab. I just walked fast through back streets until my legs burned, my heart pounding against my ribs. The whole time I had the feeling someone was following me, eyes flicking behind every corner. When I finally reached the old hotel, the rain had started. It plastered my hair to my face, soaked my shoes, and made the neon sign above flicker like a heartbeat. I almost turned back. Almost. But then a black car cruised slowly past the end of the street and didn't stop. I knew I couldn't go home, so I pushed through the door and into the musty lobby. The man at the front desk didn't even look up, just slid a key across the counter as if he'd been expecting me. Room 47. My chest heaved as I climbed the stairs. With each step, the noise of the city faded, replaced by an eerie silence. The hallway was dim again, flickering bulbs casting long shadows on the peeling wallpaper. When I reached the door, it swung open before I could knock. He was waiting for me. No coat this time, just a dark shirt, sleeves rolled, tattoos and scars exposed on his forearms. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd been out in the rain too. His eyes caught the light and held it. Sharp as knives, but softer at the edges than I remembered. "You came back," he said quietly. I didn't answer. I shoved past him into the room, dropped my bag on the couch, and spun on him. "You knew," I hissed. "You knew they were going to hit my office." He closed the door slowly, leaning against it as if to block the world out. "I warned you. I don't need your riddles. Luca, you knew people were going to die." His jaw flexed. His voice stayed low, almost a whisper. I tried to stop it. Then stop it now. Stop them from coming after me. He stepped closer, his presence a wall of heat and shadow. "That's what I'm doing." I laughed, bitter, shaky. "By dragging me here? By scaring me half to death?" He reached out, fingers brushing my arm just enough to stop my shaking. "By keeping you alive." The room went still. Outside, thunder cracked like a warning. I stared at him, hating how his touch steadied me, hating how my body betrayed me by leaning into the warmth. "Why me?" I whispered. His eyes flickered, because I couldn't watch it happen again. "What?" He turned away, pacing once toward the window, his silhouette framed by the storm. "My brother had someone innocent. They used her to get to him. I failed to protect her. She died." He looked back at me then, eyes burning with something between rage and guilt. "I won't fail again." My throat closed. "You're insane," I whispered, but softer now. "Maybe, but they're already looking for you. This room is wired, guarded, and invisible. They won't touch you here." He crossed the space between us until he was inches away, his voice dropping lower. "All you have to do is stay." I swallowed hard. "And if I don't?" His eyes darkened, a storm swallowing any softness left. "Then I can't promise you'll survive." For a long, heavy moment, we just stood there. His breath mingled with mine, thunder rumbling behind him. His hand lifted, hovering just shy of my cheek, then dropped again as if he'd burned himself on the thought. I should be terrified. I was terrified. But some part of me, the part still trembling, still alive, recognized something else. This wasn't just a stranger anymore. This was a man dragging me into the eye of his storm, and part of me was already inside it. I turned away, staring at the rain streaking the window. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. He exhaled slowly. "Now, sweetheart, we wait for them to make their move. And if they do?" He smiled, but it wasn't kind. "Then they find out why I'm called a devil." The storm outside built like a drum roll before an execution. Thunder rolled over the city, and lightning slashed across the sky in sharp white veins. Inside room 47, the air was thick with the weight of waiting. I sat on the edge of the bed, my bag still at my feet, fingers curled tight around the silver bracelet. Across the room, Luca was a silhouette by the window, one hand resting on the frame, the other hidden behind his back. He hadn't moved for nearly an hour, just watched. He looked like a man carved from shadow, shoulders taut, jaw set, the soft glint of his watch ticking in the dim light. "Are you sure they'll come?" I asked finally, my voice breaking the silence. He didn't turn his head. "They're already here." A chill crawled up my spine. "How do you know?" "Because, sweetheart, I invited them." I shot to my feet. "What?" He finally turned, his eyes black pools of calm fury. "This ends tonight." Before I could demand what he meant, a faint noise rose from the hallway. Boots on old wood, soft at first, then heavier. Multiple footsteps. My stomach knotted. Luca straightened, rolling his sleeves up to his elbows. The tattoos on his forearms caught the lightning flash, dark ink snaking over his veins. "Get behind the bed," he said quietly. I didn't move. "Luca, now." His voice cracked like a whip, and my body obeyed before my mind could argue. I crouched behind the bed, peeking just enough to see him reach under the couch and pull out a matte black handgun with a silencer attached. Another weapon followed, a slender blade he slipped into his waistband. My heart pounded against my ribs. This was no act, no fantasy. He wasn't just some dark stranger. He was exactly what the whispers said he was. The footsteps stopped outside the door. The knob rattled once, then again. Then silence. Luca tilted his head slightly like a wolf catching a scent. His hand tightened around the gun. 3. Another rattle. 2. A click of metal. 1. The door burst inward. 2 men in black stormed in first, guns raised. A third followed, scanning the room with a laser sight. Luca moved before they even saw him. The first man dropped with a muffled thud, shot clean through the chest before he could fire. The second swung his gun, but Luca's knife was already in the air, spinning like a glint of lightning. It buried itself in the man's throat. He fell, choking, gurgling, before collapsing into a heap. The third man fired, a bullet splintering the dresser inches from my head. I ducked, heart hammering. Luca lunged, slammed the man's arm against the wall and drove his elbow into his jaw. The gun clattered to the floor. With a single efficient twist, Luca snapped his neck. The sound was sickening. Silence followed. The only sound was the storm outside and my ragged breathing. Luca lowered his gun slowly, eyes scanning the room, shoulders still tense. His shirt clung to him from the exertion, his chest rising and falling like a predator after a kill. I stared at him, horror and awe twisting together in my veins. This wasn't the man who'd whispered in a cafe. This was the devil everyone whispered about. He kicked one of the guns away, then finally looked at me. "You okay?" I couldn't speak. My hands were shaking so badly I clutched the bracelet just to keep them still. "Say something, sweetheart." I swallowed hard. You killed them." His jaw tightened. "I saved you." That didn't make it feel less unreal. Blood was pooling on the carpet, spreading in dark shapes. The air smelled of gunpowder and iron. "They would have taken you," he said flatly. "Or worse." I pressed my palm to my mouth, bile rising in my throat. "Why? Why me?" "Because they think you're my weakness." His words cut like glass. A loud bang from outside the window snapped his head up. He swore under his breath and grabbed my arm, pulling me to my feet. "We have to go." "Where?" He didn't answer. He yanked open a panel behind the bookshelf, a hidden door leading to a narrow staircase. "Now, sweetheart. Unless you want to see what happens when they send the second wave." I followed, stumbling after him as he guided me down the hidden passage. The stairs creaked under our weight, damp and cold. My heart thudded louder with every step. But somehow, beneath the terror, there was another feeling rising. Not just fear, not just awe, something else. Somewhere between fascination and surrender. We burst out into an alley behind the hotel, rain slashing at our faces. A black car waited, engine running. 2 men in suits stood by it, but these men didn't point guns. They bowed their heads slightly at Luca. "Get in," he ordered. I slid into the back seat, drenched, shaking. Luca climbed in beside me, his gun still in his hand. His other arm braced protectively across my body as the car sped off into the night. "Where are we going?" I whispered. He finally looked at me then. Eyes dark and unreadable. "Somewhere they'll never touch you." The car roared through the empty streets, rain blurring the city lights into streaks of gold and red. I leaned against the window, shivering, not just from the cold, but from the adrenaline that refused to fade. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, twisting the silver bracelet on my wrist. Each charm seemed heavier now, like a chain tethering me to him. Luca's eyes were on the road, sharp and alert. His jaw was set, the storm outside reflected in the steel-hard line of his face. Every so often he would glance at me, and I could feel the weight of his gaze, part warning, part assessment, part something I wasn't ready to name. We drove in silence for a while. The city was behind us, but the sense of danger didn't leave. Every flicker of movement in the shadows, every flash of headlights made me tense. I wanted to speak, to demand answers, but the words felt small, powerless. Finally, he broke the silence. "You'll be safe here," he said quietly. "Where is here?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Somewhere no one will find you." The car slowed, and we turned down a narrow, deserted road. The trees pressed close, rain dripping from the branches, the sound of the storm muffled by the thick canopy. Eventually, we arrived at a large, secluded estate. The gates swung open silently as he drove in, and I realized how much planning and reach he had, even for something as simple as this. Inside, the place was modern yet intimidating. Cameras, motion sensors, guards, everything in its place. He led me to a room on the second floor, sparsely decorated but comfortable. A bed, a desk, and a view of the storm outside. "Stay. Don't leave. And don't call anyone," he warned, his voice low. I nodded, swallowing. But the question that had been burning inside me since room 47 escaped my lips anyway. "Why me?" He paused, leaning against the doorway. For a moment, he didn't answer, and the silence pressed against my chest like water. "Because," he said finally, "you're the first person in years who didn't run. You didn't scream. You didn't faint. You didn't flinch. You sent me something I wasn't expecting, and it reminded me there's still something worth protecting." I blinked, trying to process. "Protecting me? After everything? After the blood, the death, the danger?" "Yes," he said, stepping closer. "Protecting you, and I don't know how to stop thinking about you." The words hit me harder than the first time he admitted anything. My breath caught. My chest tightened. Fear and fascination tangled in a mess I couldn't untangle. I tried to step back, but I didn't. My legs felt like lead. "I'm not safe." I whispered. You can't. I can, he interrupted gently, almost pleading. I stared at him, incredulous. You saw tonight. You saw what I can do, what I am. And you still let me protect you. I swallowed, but my voice was barely audible. Why? Because, he said, I've been called a devil my whole life. People fear me, but you made me want to be something more. For once I want to be human. For you. The intensity in his eyes was overwhelming. It wasn't just obsession anymore. It was need, raw and undeniable. I shook my head, trying to pull back. This is insane, I whispered. I can't. He reached out, brushing a wet strand of hair from my face, fingers lingering longer than necessary. Then don't. Don't try to understand it. Just be here. The storm outside raged on, but inside the room, the air shifted. I didn't know if it was relief or terror, or the faint pull of something dangerous that felt like desire. My heart refused to settle, beating faster at the thought of staying here with him, alone, in the eye of a storm we had created together. I looked down at the bracelet, at the charms that marked every moment he'd pulled me into his world. A lock, a key, a silver band binding me to him, and somewhere deep inside, I realized I didn't want to leave. Not yet. Not while Luca's dark presence lingered at the edge of my world. Not while I could feel the sharp thrill of fear mixed with something dangerously close to trust. Or maybe even love. I glanced at him again. He was watching me, steady and unflinching. You'll have to decide soon, he said softly, voice almost tender. Decide what? I whispered, whether you want to survive, or whether you want to feel alive. And in that moment, I realized the line between fear and fascination had vanished completely.